Beauty. Where did your mind go in that split second after I had said that word? Who knows, right? Everyone's different. But for some of you, maybe your mind went to an image you had seen recently on Instagram or some other social media platform. It amazes me how these very human ideas and concepts have become so interwoven with technology, with these social media platforms that we have begun to invest in more and more. And sometimes I wonder, what will the future generations, what will the anthropologists of the future use to understand us, to understand our times, our generation? And I think it'll be these social media platforms, these pieces of technology that we have created and invest in ever greater amounts. So on today's episode, I have with me in the nest Robert Avery, aka Bobby A, the legend, and I have Joseph Mark, the Haitian wanderer and explorer. And we're going to try to delve into this idea of beauty and how it's become so intertwined, so connected with these various social media platforms. And I don't know if we're going to come to any conclusions. We're just three knuckleheads. But at the very least, I hope this conversation is enjoyable, is interesting, and is a sensual experience for your ears. So without further ado, I give you our next conversation. I hope you enjoy. And today we're going to be talking about Instagram and how it has corrupted, or better, changed the way we view beauty. I think that's what we're going to talk about, right, Joe?
It was definitely not like a topic that I was thinking about. I've kind of went on. I'm on Instagram. Well, I was on Instagram fairly often, and you just peruse it, and you kind of see kind of the face that people want to show you instead of the really what's going on in their real lives. And it just made me think, okay, uh, the beauty standards that are set on Instagram are very, very high. And in one way, it can be aspirational, and in another way, it can be detrimental, especially for people that are kind of impressionable, like teens or adolescents. So it's just something that kind of came up in my head when I was just going over ideas to talk about.
Nice. That's very cool. I know Rob had a lot to talk about with this subject because I think him and I have discussed Instagram in the
Yeah.
past. What do you got?
All right. So yeah, I think Joe, I think you're. We can just jump right off of that. I think you're exactly right. I think the fact that you can edit and filter, and this application. I mean, everyone knows what Instagram is. We don't even have to explain to anyone what it is, but you can. It has these built-in filters, and you can like airbrush and like effectively Photoshop yourself, and it's kind of false advertising in some way because, as Joe said, you're demonstrating to the world the way that you want it to be seen, not actually what in reality what you would look like if I would meet you face to face in the street. So that's where a lot of this Instagram craze comes from. But and if you go diving deeper, if you want to understand someone's personality, you can kind of get a hint of it just by looking through their feed. And if you look at all these pictures and they're all selfies and they're all Photoshop selfies of themselves, you know what kind of person that is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you can get a sense immediately. You can get a sense of the personality of a person just from looking at like the first page of their feed.
So both of you guys are on Instagram, right?
I am.
Joe, you were on Instagram. Is that what you said?
No, I am. I just don't use it as much as I used to.
But you have it, like, do you periodically go on it and kind of like you still view it, but do you not post to it?
I would say I definitely don't post as much as I used to, but I don't view it as much as I used to as well. But I do go on to view some of the posts that are on there, but I definitely don't post as much as I used to.
Interesting. Yeah, so I with Instagram, I've never been on it. Like I'll go on Instagram, like I'll see, but I don't have an account, so like I can't really have full access.
All
The
right.
one thing I've noticed is like what you said, Rob, and it's like with the filters, it's almost like when you look at people, you don't even know if you're looking at them like in reality. You're a lot of times you're looking at like almost like a cartoon. Like this is like a computer generated image. And to me, like that I have found like if you get an eye for looking at filters, it's like a very strange kind of like a weird thing because you'll see like there's a girl I know that lives nearby me and like all of her pictures, like her social media pictures, she's skinny, but in real life she's not. And it's kind of like it's a weird thing that like you can kind of project one version of yourself that's very different from like the reality. And to me, I just find that like kind of strange. I don't know if I don't think it's a good thing, but I couldn't tell you. Like maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems odd to me in some way.
No, I think gig- that's an enormous part of Instagram is you can basically manipulate and curate the way you portray yourself to the world. And many times, and that's why I like this topic, probably 95% of the time, it's either embellished or it's not truly an accurate depiction of who you are. And that's what makes social media in general a little dangerous because it's people say you obviously you have people that use it genuinely and they use it the right way for the right reasons and it's a depiction of genuinely who they are, but 9 out of 10 times it's an almost a fantasy of how you want people to perceive who you are.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It gives you the ability to like curate in some way this like art project that is like who you like who your life, who you are, or who you how you want to be perceived. I think what do you think about the psychology of that? Because I think you people sometimes people become kind of like lost in the illusion that they're trying to project into the world and themselves. And it's almost like two different entities, right? Because like if obviously if you can make a use a filter that makes you look thinner or it makes you look this way or looks that way, it's like that's not you, but you get all of these likes based on that. That how could you not be like influenced by that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. um, it's totally influenced by that. I think that's the major reason why people do that. um, which is, I mean, social media has done a lot of good things in terms of spreading news and information, and some of it is even educational to an extent. But a lot of it is used for just like self-aggrandizement and like self-affirmation. I think that's basically what Instagram is. I have this amount of likes, this amount of views, so now I can feel better about myself.
Yeah. No. Yeah. As someone who's not a user of Instagram, yeah, that's yeah, I don't know the psychology of it is just kind of yeah, it's a strange thing. Like the likes, the views, you've like you've like created, you turned life into a game, um, and like because you can get these likes, it especially. I mean, maybe we can go in the direction when it comes to like women because I think this is in some way Instagram. I, I have to say maybe affects them more so because you can become like enamored by the amount of attention you get in this somewhat real, somewhat not real universe. And it's I don't know, it has to mess with people to some degree.
So, Joe, I do have a question for you. Best, sorry to cut you off. So, Joe Joe used Instagram the way I would like to follow someone, and he knows what I'm talking about. He took more pictures, at least when he was active. It was usually skyline, scenery, um, this cool building, this cool like shot in the street of New York on a busy day, things like this. But where we get to the problem is, and I want to ask Joe why he felt the need to do it that way, because in my opinion, that's the right. it's the quote unquote the right way. It's a good way to use it. It's a better way to describe it than just taking selfies of yourself in the mirror and editing them and putting 700 of them on Instagram. So Joe, why did you feel the need to it's basically like you were like a skyline scenic guy.
Well, I like actually being behind the camera. That's the thing I love the most. Being able to capture something that I see on a day to day basis. To me, honestly, depends on the end game. I know there's some people that want to put themselves out there personally to um, attract a significant other or to promote their brand, their personal brand. So it depends on the end game. It it can be very much used as like an aspirational thing. Like I know for me, I look at things that The Rock does, and it makes me want to be a little bit better. It's like it's a give and a take. You can let it eat you up and actually kind of spit you out in terms of um, being a little bit shallow and trying to show off a certain piece of yourself that's not really who you are. And there's another part where you can actually use it to motivate yourself to be better, to be the person that you want to be. So it is you just have to have a balance. I just know for me, I like being behind the camera. I like taking pictures of others, which I let other people like whenever I take a picture of someone else, I send it to that person. I usually don't like posting it myself. But yeah, I like being behind the camera and being able to capture the things that I see on a day to day basis. And it can be a little bit boring. I know I've had that conversation with a couple of my friends who think that not the it's not a fun um, not a fun post to see, but it is what it is.
So, Joe, why did you want to discuss this subject today? Um, like, why? What about specifically the element of beauty? Because I remember when we talked about this or we were texting previously, you didn't just say Instagram. Like, we could have just talked about Instagram broadly, but you mentioned Instagram and its relation to beauty. Was there like an idea or a thought or something that you were really thinking about when you mentioned that a particular idea or a problem that you've come across or witnessed?
No, it's not a problem that I've witnessed. Is I've noticed like a pattern. Like I follow certain like um, fitness models, and there's one thing I noticed that beauty and fitness goes hand in hand sometimes, and it's just it's a it's a little weird to see how hand in hand it can really be. And there's certain aspects of both of those worlds that kind of don't they kind of go together, but they kind of don't. It's how you present yourself out in public or in private. To be honest, it's just something that I've noticed among that community. How it's one kind of feeds off the other, and it really should be. I mean, if you want it to be about beauty, then that's fine. But it should really be about kind of promoting yourself in a positive light and not kind of tearing yourself down. That's just the way I see it.
All right, so I have a follow up question, Joe. So when you say beauty, do you think people are looking for external affirmation of their self perceived beauty, or do they think it's necessary to gain this attention in order to feel validated? Does that question make sense? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it something that's born out of their own original thought that, hey, I'm attractive, or I'm cool, or I'm compelling, or I'm good looking, or is it the opposite of the other side of the coin? Is like, I need 75 likes on this page, or else I'm going to think that I'm not worthy of this.
I think it's more of the latter. It's more of um, really more this self affirmation. Like I'm putting myself out there, uh, and also some of it is more of a teaching aspect too. Like I know certain friends that I have, they are into like beauty and kind of living that kind of healthy beauty lifestyle. So, and they just want to pass on those learns onto other people. So there's a positive aspect to it. It's just on a case by case basis. Sometimes there can be, if you look at a certain celebrity, you can see them, like you said earlier, photoshopping themselves or their significant others or their family members, and it kind of shows the dark aspects of what really is beauty and how is it portrayed on social media.
Okay, yeah, that's I like that answer. Um, Go ahead, Chris.
So Joe, I just want to tag on to that last bit that you said about like I'm trying to think. Now I just lost my train of thought. What are the qualities like this beauty that you're talking about, like the and how it relates to Instagram and the darker sides, the positive sides? Like, are you noticing like trends that are like beauty trends that you're seeing? Like, I mean, not to be vulgar, but like for example, like big butts it has become a trend. I mean, there's always been people who have liked them, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
you've
yeah.
seen like with Instagram, you're like there's a now like people are going and getting like butt implants, are going to different parts of the world, and it's like at one point in our lifetime, it was not considered by the majority to be like this ideal physical feature, and now it definitely is. So like, is that an example of something that like Instagram is like is influencing or affecting? Because I mean, we're like Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians in general. Like I think they were early adopters of Instagram, and like some of the beauty, some of the things that they have done to themselves to augment themselves, those have become like popular. They've become like a trending behavior, feature, modification. Like, or is that kind of what you're talking about? Like that kind of weird relationship between like Instagram, beauty, like the social media world and the real world?
That's hilarious. I think you're exactly right. Sir Mix-a-Lot and the Kardashians changed everything for us. But go ahead, Joe.
Most definitely. I think body image is a big issue. I know when I look at my sister, she during this quarantine, she's a little bit more self conscious about once the quarantine or the lockdown is over, how she she's going to present herself to her friends and to the public. But I know for sure, for me personally, and for probably millions of people that use it, body image is the big issue, and using a platform like Instagram can affect you in both a positive and definitely on in a negative way.
So I have a question about this specifically. This the people who are presenting themselves, and then also like how in your sister's case, like they are now the consuming these ideas. For you two who are users of Instagram, do the people who like we all know like there's the one guy who's like what is his name is that he's like the king of Instagram, something Blazarian or whatever his name is.
Dan Bilzerian.
Thank you. And right, like you're gonna get these really cool pictures, like adventurous, they're intimate, right? To be him and a girl, him and a couple girls, whatever. But like if you zoomed out of that picture, there's a team of people that are taking those. Like there's he has hired multiple photographers. It's more like he's a celebrity with a team to make him look a certain way and come across a certain way. And I would assume that there's a lot of people on Instagram that where that's the case. Like they're not on randomly seeing the sunset and like the girlfriend took a picture or the guy took a picture. It's no, like this is a job. This is they are their persona is cultivated. They have a team. They have a stylist. They have photographers, videographers, whatever. It's not spur of the moment. It is orchestrated and with a goal, with an intention. Like, do you think that like what do you have to say about that? Like, what do you think? Like, and how that affects like in your sister's case, right? Like, she might be looking at someone and comparing herself to her, but it's like you're not comparing yourself to a person. You're comparing yourself to a person with a team of professionals to make her or make him look that way or operate that way. So like what do you think about that as like a pattern, as a thing that more than one person does?
I I think it's a little different. I feel like with Bill Zarian, it's really more of a business opportunity for him to he can show show to the world who he wants himself to be, or and I wouldn't be surprised if that's who he is. The things that he does is it's kind of outlandish. So it it's just it's a little weird because there's certain people that they want to be able to show off their lifestyle and kind of show it off to the world and show that you can do some of the things that they do, while others are trying to aspire to get to that lifestyle, so they're trying to emulate that, and it comes off as a little bit phony. But in terms of like the body image, I know it, from my personal aspect, it affects a lot more women than it does men, but it can be an issue for men.
So yeah, I think Joe is right. I think it's for the female gender, it's a totally different ball game, and we that's a whole, that might be a whole other podcast in general. But I think both of you raise excellent points. A lot of this is scripted. It's like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue shoot. There's, as you said, there's the makeup artists, there's the videographers, there's the producers and the managers to be like, okay, this is the right shot. It's 7:45 on this yacht. The sun's going down. This is the time to take this photo. Everything is planned and designed by design, right? So it's nothing, almost nothing with those professional Instagrammers or influencers, as they like to be called, quote unquote. They don't influence me, I'll tell you that right now. But everything is scripted, start to finish. All right, what they're wearing, the time of day, who's with them in the picture, what's in the background of the picture, etc. Everything. Right. So it's not unlike a magazine shoot, like a GQ magazine shoot or a Sports Illustrated. It's the same thing, but now that it's so accessible, it reaches hundreds of millions of people around the world. So it's become even more important than that, because beforehand in the 90s, when we were growing up and we were teenagers, you had to buy the fucking magazine to see this. Now I can literally open my phone and in 5 seconds I can see what everyone's doing right now, instantly. So that changes everything. So the instant gratification also comes part of it, and that's why there's so much advertising money being pulled into. So that's the next question I want to ask. What do you guys think about how Facebook, Instagram, Twitter have just become financial giants because the amount of eyes and ears and fingers typing are interacting with these platforms?
100%. I mean, to go back to what Joe had said about Blazarian or whatever his name is, the guy with the beard. He, I mean, I think he's not. I think Instagram, the heyday of Instagram, as I understand, is over. Right now, it's the business, because I think you have a lot. Think about how many people are on Instagram and they're publicizing themselves, and it's a business. Whether it's a successful business or a big business, that's up for debate. But that's how people are beginning to see A, social media different, and B, Instagram specifically different, I think. I think people are starting. It's like when we are the children of social media, right? We came about in the dawn of social media, and if you remember, it's like people used it for fun, like MySpace. It was, you kind of like, we had some of these issues. You were kind of trying to cultivate, showing off, trying to look cool, but it was still more the everyday person. I could be really wrong, but at least that's what I think it was. But now I think social media is becoming more, and in general, like, you cultivate what you put on there. People are more careful with what they put on there because they see it now as a tool, and not just as an outlet. Like, let me show you the pictures from my trip to Greece. It's like, no. I'm trying to create a persona, a brand that I can then leverage in some other capacity. I mean, just like YouTube, here's an interesting thing. If you go on YouTube, how many celebrities are now have YouTube channels? If you pay attention, it was not always that way. That's a new phenomenon because they're I think realizing, oh shit, why have we not been using this? Why have I been just trying to like climb the ladder of the studios and make big movies? Why don't I just become like Jessica Alba? I just saw her today. She has her YouTube channel and she's just kind of like showing off how to cut your hair in quarantine. It's like, come, you know what I mean? They're now saying, oh shit, like there was this magical platform that we should have been using for all time. I think the idea of like this, you know, positive world where people are just trying to show their lives is kind of done. And now it's like, how can I leverage this to make money, whether I'm the company or as a user? How can I finagle this and turn this into a business? Yeah, I mean that's at least what I've been seeing.
So yeah, you're exactly right. And I'll tell you this: I guarantee you, I 100% guarantee you that it's not Jessica Alba that came up with that idea. It's her, the whatever sponsorship endorses her shampoo or her hair product that says go online and tell people how to do this. That's part of it. It's like you said, it's not a personal like, hey, because when we think of Instagram, the original idea from the beginning, as someone who's been using it for years, was, oh, this is going to be just my digital photo album, like a family photo album you've had from throughout the years of decades of all your family photos. Just a place where, for you personally, you can store all your photos so you can go back and see and maybe show a couple other people that you're close with or that you have a good relationship with and you like. But now it's totally flipped on its head. And it's like you said, it's become a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool to raise your profile, to promote your brand. And it's almost a necessity in 2020. You have to have this presence on all things. And now it's even spread further, Joe and Chris. Now it's not just Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter anymore. You have TikTok, you have Twitch, where people can watch you play video games. You have TikTok. I don't even know what the fuck TikTok is. I can tell you that right now. I don't know what it is. You have Snapchat, which is just like quick photos and things like that, and all of like quick stories. You can tell an entire digital story to people. So instead of actually sitting down and writing a short story, you can show it to someone. And I think that's the idea behind Snapchat. So you have things like that. It's the shame of it. And that's why I'll go back to what we said at the beginning, and I'll ask Joe again the same question. I love that the way Joseph was using it, because it was more of like, oh, this was a beautiful scene that I was walking down the Brooklyn Bridge and I happened to catch this beautiful sunset. Picture, boom, post. Now it's, as you said, Chris, it's people setting up, and you have producers and you have people setting up. So let's catch the sun on the Brooklyn Bridge where it's 7:21 p.m. and we need to catch this right now. And this is going to be the picture that we post for us. So it's totally become a marketing tool.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Rob. Instagram, it's definitely being used for that. Although I feel like with Insta Story and Snapchat, that's kind of what Instagram used to be. I remember one of our mutual friends, Raphael, he kind of introduced me to Instagram, and he showed me what it was for, and it was really just showing off whatever you were doing at the time or whatever you saw, and it's kind of migrated over to Snapchat or Insta Story or uh, Instagram TV or whatever they want to call it, and it's just like short little bites of what's going on in your world. That's what it used to be. Now it's definitely something a lot more curated, and it's something to kind of show off or really kind of generate views or likes to an alternative end in terms of trying to make money or to try to become an influencer.
So A couple of things I've noticed that are kind of funny about Instagram. So I was watching on YouTube at one point. There was, and this kind of ties into what you just said, Joe. There was this woman. Well, the person taking the video was a man, and he's in his car, and he's in like a nice car, like a Lamborghini, let's say. And I think this picture was actually in New York City, like by nearby the meatpacking district, right near the Apple store. And there's this woman, nicely dressed, high heels, nice dress like you'd see in Chelsea on a nice day in New York. And she goes and sees his car, and she gives her phone to a friend to take her picture sitting on the back of this Lamborghini. I don't know if you guys have seen this video. And the guy who's taking the video that you see is in the Lamborghini. And as she sits down, he throttles it. And you just watch her like freak out because obviously she's on this car and she thinks she thought no one was on it. But there's a couple of things I was thinking about when I saw it. I was like, all right, you're going to post that picture online. Why did you do it? What would be the point of it, right? It's not your car. You're sitting on this car. Are you going to put like any in the notes, the hashtags, like sitting on someone else's car? No, you're trying to create the illusion of something that's not real. Like you're trying, like the only reason you want to sit on a Lamborghini and you're dressed nice is to try to make yourself out to be someone who either could own a Lamborghini or has dealings in the circles where people own Lamborghinis. It's like taking a picture of yourself on a yacht, right? You didn't say this was like, you're on a school trip and it just so happened that there was a yacht and you paid money to go. No, you're trying to show that you're the type of person that has friends and you exist in a social circle where being on yachts is commonplace. And at least maybe this is how I look at things. And it might be wrong. It probably is wrong. It's probably kind of negative. But at least that's what I kind of see. Like, we all live in New York. How often do you see someone taking a picture in a plume of smoke coming from the netherworld that is the subways? And it's like, whenever there's smoke coming out of the ground, you're going to see, and I hate to say it, you're going to see some cute girl having her friend or her boyfriend or a guy who would like to be her boyfriend taking a picture of her in this smoke plume. And why? It's like it's become like an archetypical picture. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's to me it's just like, why? Like it's not it didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't like this just happened. It was, no, like you thought about it. You're like, I need to get this picture. I need to get these New York pictures. I got to get a picture in front of a graffiti of an angel, and I got to be in the center of it, so I look like I have angel's wings. I got to get a picture of the that one building, the one that's really skinny. I forget what it's called. The Flatiron Building. I got to get a picture in front of a smoke plume that's coming out of a New York City street. You know what I mean? These are things. It's like, it to me, there's a disingenuousness. It's a lie. That's how I look at it. I mean, that's maybe why I take offense to it. It's like, I feel like people are liars, and Instagram allows you to be a liar to a greater extent.
Yes, short answer is yes. But was that Radetzky in the Ferrari, in the Lamborghini? I guarantee you it was. I don't care if he hears this. Fuck him. So, he knows. He knows he rents Lamborghinis for one day just to floss outside of an Apple store, which he works in. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, to seriously answer your question, I think it's about the aesthetics. So it's like we said, someone is producing this like a photo shoot, right? So when you see this beautiful car, this Italian-made just work of art, you see the smoke, you see the light coming off the Flatiron Building in a certain way. Like, these are all very, very thought out things, and it's because humans are drawn to the aesthetic. So not only do we have the gorgeous woman, the beautiful woman or man, the model, we also have the beautiful background at the same time. And humans are just, it does something to us inside. And that was the next question I was going to ask. And I want Joe to take this afterwards. But one more comment. For me, it's like people are attracted to skylines and scenic views and views of the water and lighting, but to me there's nothing more aesthetically pleasing to the eye than what you just described, Chris, a beautiful woman in a gorgeous setting. Like there's just that's like you can oil paint that and I'll put it up in my damn room. It's like it's not perverse. It's not there's nothing sexual about it. It's just it's so aesthetically pleasing to have that type of a person, that good looking of a person, man or woman, it doesn't matter, in that type of a environment and setting. So my question to Joe is like, what do you think? It was that part of why you were using Instagram in more of like an aesthetic way and not more of like a self-fulfilling type of way?
I know for me, it's really more of just a self fulfilling kind of way. It's just a way for me to uh, practice my photography and just also show off in what I feel are the beautiful things that I've seen. I will push back a little against the grain of um, certain people that take those kind of shots on who are kind of trying to show off either themselves or kind of try to show off the kind of lifestyle that they want people to see themselves as. It depends to me on what that account is. Certain accounts, but there's always to me when it comes to that, like what you said, Chris. There's an end game to uh, an Instagram account or a Snapchat account. If someone wants to get to a certain point with all of these posts, so some people want to be able to show off their videography or photography, or some people want to kind of monetize their body or monetize their looks. Some want to be kind of like a um, more of someone who is in the scene of being in that kind of um, partying kind of atmosphere, kind of being with the in crowd. So it to me it just depends on what your end game is. If you if you have a if you have kind of like a curated way of trying to get to where you want to go, then by no means go ahead and do it. But also be aware of the critiques as well, because that's going to come. And I think that's another negative aspect of social media is kind of like the cyberbullying that goes on. It's it's very simple. If you don't like it, then you don't have to really follow it. You can just move on and do your own thing.
Yeah, you're right, and I should be pushed back because I mean I tend to take a more negative perspective, and that's wrong because you're right. Like for a lot of people, for you who enjoys photography, Yao who enjoys photography, we know a lot of photographers, and like this is a way for them to express themselves, maybe experiment, push themselves, whatever. Like it's a free country. You spend your time and your energy how you want to do it. And I think it is nice to have that ability for people to see your work and not have to build your own website. So I think that's cool. Trying to think, I think I had a question for you, Joe, and that was well, two things. I don't use Instagram. One is do they have a feed where things are going to show up? So is it just the people you subscribe to that you see, or is it that if like based on likes, a picture can get pushed up so like I'm now seeing stuff that I didn't intend to see. It's just that like the algorithm is sending it to me. Is that how it works, or am I wrong? Tell me, because I don't use Instagram. I don't know how it as a program operates.
So there's a discover portion or a tab in it too. So you can discover, and that's where I kind of see a lot of the stuff that I want to look at. You can discover certain people that are similar to the likes that you put out there, or you can actually go seek out certain people that are in the same mold of what you would like. So it can vary. It very much can vary, but yeah, you have a direct feed of people that you follow, and then there's also a feed of who you can and who you want to discover. I I know that another aspect of certain posts like that are to kind of put yourself in a good light. I know there's certain people that who do online dating. The first thing they look for is someone's Instagram page, and when you have a certain kind of um, curated look about yourself, that can kind of make it easier for you to be able to um, meet new people on another app when it comes to dating sites. So it is so many different motivations that come into play when it comes to posting on these sites. And the thing that I've noticed is it's really more the younger generation. They are very impressionable, and they can easily fall prey to thinking, okay, this is what I need to do in terms of being able to gain popularity or to gain money, and it's a kind of, it could be a trap a little bit for them. I would say not as much for us, but for them, and that's the worrying part about it.
Yeah, I think yeah, to echo what Joe says, that's exactly right. It's like it's worrisome the way people do use Instagram, and it's also like the just the total artificial intelligence type conversation that we've had in previous episodes. It's how much of your life are you going to put online for people to see? And there's people that put their entire lives online, and that in and of itself says something about you, that you're willing, there's no privacy at this point, like you're putting your entire life online for everyone to see at any time, and they can replay this over and over. That's another thing about Instagram. As for a post, not the story, for a post, people can just go back and just see videos of you from 5 years ago that you posted, and they can watch it in unlimited quantities. So it's a little weird. That's where you get like the darker aspect of it that Joe alluded to earlier. But I want to share the one funny thing about Instagram is, I think Chris, you alluded to this earlier. Is like, this is the way you want to demonstrate yourself to the world in terms of gaining whatever attraction you want, whether it be dating attraction or jobs or some kind of community or friendship, and your whatever your goal is, you can tailor your Instagram to that would make it attractive to that sector of people. And one of the funniest things is, I'm not going to name who she is, but she has a rule about what we just said about the dating apps. She said the first thing she said is, "You guys are right. If he has his Instagram link on the dating app, I'm going to the Instagram right after I look at at it, right?" And she says, "I have a rule. If on your first page you have more than two pictures with your shirt off, you're being a hardo and you're trying way too hard. But if you have no pictures with your shirt off, that means you're trying to hide some kind of a dad body that you have." So the best, so she said, the best thing is you got to have at least one picture of you at the beach or the pool, of like showing off like, you got to get it, you got to get the tarp off, you got to get her going here a little bit. It's at least one, but if it's more than two, it's too much. But if there's none, she just completely dubs you, because she's like, this guy's, his body probably sucks. So it's weird. It's fucking weird the way people use this, and that's why I like that you brought that up. That's now a barometer of how to gauge people, that you're in the pool, in the dating pool.
That's hilarious. Yeah, the dating, if we want to go down this is a rabbit hole, but social media has changed the way, in my opinion, especially Instagram, dating is done. I don't have an Instagram account, and you're absolutely right. Like, it has now become I don't want to say you will be, I don't want to say you'll be persecuted. You will be, a lot of people will be filtered out if they don't have Instagram. And to me, that's a very weird phenomenon that we now exist in, where it's not like you, Joe, choose to use Instagram and I choose not to. There is coming a point, and in some circles, there is a point where you might lose out on opportunities because you choose not to use a social media platform. You choose not to have certain aspects of your life broadcasted to the world. And it's kind of that's a weird freaking reality. You know what I mean? Like it is weird that this thing now, like, I remember, and I'm not trying to put you on blast, Rob, but I recall when you were talking about getting hired for a new job, and you were like, "Do I need to get a LinkedIn profile?" And that's a social media profile as well. It's more tailored towards work, but it is kind of strange that if you don't have a LinkedIn account because of whatever reason, you're just choosing not. You're like, I have my resume, I have my work experience. I don't need this thing. That there might be an employer that's like, oh, he doesn't have a LinkedIn account. Like, that's odd. I'm not going to hire that person. And I think it's very strange, specifically because how many people who work in this industry, specifically connected to social media, how many of them don't use social media? Like, that to me is very odd, right? It's like you've created a platform that now in some ways society has deemed and validated. So, like, just like you said in that example, where dating is now like, oh, you don't have an Instagram account. Well, you must be a creep. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to go out with you. I'm not going to validate you for myself. You've decided not to use a social media platform. That in itself is a negative, right? It's like, but the people who built that don't use it, right? You're hearing it a lot, like how people in Silicon Valley they're like very much like, I don't go on social media platforms, or I don't go use my device, or I don't let my kids use the device in the home. And that to me is where it gets a little bit weird, because it's like, all right, is this a good thing we should be using? Okay, there's positives, there's negatives. The people who made it don't use it. Well, that's a little scary. It's like a chef who doesn't eat at his own restaurant. Is that the place you should be going to? Probably not.
It's exactly right. So I did, and you know what the funniest thing is, Chris? And I asked you, we have mutual friends that are also involved in human resources, so they're directly involved in the hiring, or at least the filtering of applications and things of this nature. They said, every one of them, so 100% said, when they see an application comes in, they see a cover letter, they see the resume, they read it. The very next thing they do is go on LinkedIn and punch in that person's name and information to find them. And I was recommended, I'll tell you my own experience, I was recommended by every single person I talked to that at least create some kind of skeleton profile, at least have something online where it's could be bare bones, just your education and your work history. You don't have to do all the bells and whistles, but they said you at least have to have something, because if they filter you, all right, you pass the first round of filters to the emails and the submissions, they go to LinkedIn and they can't find you at all, you're out. You're just immediately out. And it's kind of crazy that we live, and it's the same thing with dating. It's the same thing with like other submissions, like creative work submissions, things like this. If you don't have, I could submit to you a writing packet of things I've been writing, but if I don't have some kind of a blog or a website or anything where my writing can be seen online and people can quote unquote verify digitally who I am, instantly you're out. You're just instantly out. And that's literally the structure and the parameters of what we're dealing with right now. It's kind of scary that if you don't have an online digital footprint, you're considered either strange or completely off the grid. And I mean, I don't even know. It's happened so quickly. This has happened within the last 2 decades.
All right, I'll go. Yeah, and I maybe there are some like I know Joe tends to be. I think him and I tend to go on opposite directions on a lot of things. I'm more the negative and he's more the positive. So I have a feeling Joe has some things brewing that he's ready to talk about. But for me, I would say, yes, you're right. Like it has happened where these things that were once kind of like hobbyist activities have now become, or we've made them or allowed them to become very important. And as you said with the job, like, yeah, people I think are going to look at you a little weird. They might even ask you like, "Hey, why don't you have a LinkedIn, or did you forget to put it on there?" To talk about dating, yeah, dating is an interesting ball game, and maybe this is better discussed as its own episode. But I just wanted to bring up one little aspect, and it's with that, right? I've talked to many women, friends, family, just in general. Um, and you would think, so like you said, right? That all right, you can now validate someone. You can kind of see, oh, they're on their here's their dating profile, da 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 da. I can kind of read about them. Now let me go validate that. Let me go check their Instagram account and see, okay, I can see them in different angles, I can see them in different positions. I have a better sense of them. You would think that these tools would make people's dating experience better. You would think that you would see a higher rate of like, I don't want to say happiness, but you would think you would talk to a girl and be like, "How's your dating life?" And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's great. Like I got all these tools. I can meet all these people. I can weed out people I don't might not click with or like on a physical level, emotional level, whatever." But I almost say that people's view of dating is deteriorating. And you got to wonder, are these things helping or are they hurting? Because I think with Instagram, think just to look at it from the dating perspective, let's say you're a very attractive woman, right? And you live in a more remote place. All right, well, you're limited, right? You're this very beautiful person. You obviously want to find a partner that is kind of equal to you, right? On in a variety of different ways. And all right, you live in a remote place. Well, great. Now you have social media. You can get in contact with the whole world, right? You can DM whoever the hell you want to DM. Let's say you're like the next Cleopatra living in, I don't know, Wyoming, some very remote play town. And you're like, all right, I'm better. I can do better than this. I'm gonna go reach out to, I don't know, the next Brad Pitt and try to like create create a point of connection. And now you have that ability, whereas before you didn't. So to me, I would be like, you guys should all be happy, right? You have all these opportunities now. You can meet people. You're no longer limited by distance so much or who you would come in contact just through natural life. And yet, I tend to feel that people are more negative now than ever. Not even just because of what's going on in the world, but like before that, dating life much more negative. Prospects for, I don't know, marriage if that's something you want to do. Like all of these things, you would think people will be more happy because they have greater ability to get them. And I think it's quite the opposite. I think people are a lot less satisfied and a lot less happy than they might have been if they didn't have the knowledge of what is out there. And maybe I'm babbling, so I apologize.
I just think it's more of it's it's a tool that social media is a tool to be used as a way to in just like Rob and you have said, to evaluate someone. Like if you are on a dating site and you decide to go to someone's page, you can not only see their physical appearance, and I don't, for some women that's a thing, but I think most women tend to want to see, oh, who are their friends, how do they spend their time, what are their hobbies, all these other um, micro level things that can be found on social media. So it's just, once again, it's really more of how you kind of, what's your end game in terms of being able to portray yourself on social media. What is your main goal? And that's the main thing that I see. It's it's just it's a weird kind of existence that we're in. Just like Rob said, where in a matter of not even decades, probably like 5 years, maybe 7 years, how things have just kind of progressed very fast in terms of how we kind of consume information and then how we process it and then how we kind of move from that information in terms of trying to get to the plate from point A to point B. It's a little fast, and I think we need to slow down a little bit in terms of how we uh, put that information out and how we actually process it.
Well said, Joe. I like that. And there's a couple points there. I kind of wanted your further elaboration. So one thing is, I think the word that kept coming to me when you were talking about is like intention. Right? What is your goal? What is your intention? Um, I think, and this is true of probably life in general, is like I see things from my perspective, and that kind of taints like I kind of like put my own motives into things. So, and I think you do the same, right? That's why people have difference of opinions and they can look at the same thing. My question to you, Joe, would be, right? You said, as far as when we're talking about dating, right? Like here's a person, man or woman, let's say in this case a woman, who's able to look at a profile. Let's say look at your profile, Joe, and try to get a read on who this person is. Maybe you have a date coming up or whatever, a meeting of some sort. Oh, I want to go check out Joseph Marks. And for all those who are listening, you can look up Joseph Marks Instagram. But they're going to look at it to try to get a read on you. Now, for you, if they look at yours, well, that's fine because your intention is to try to showcase yourself in a truthful way. But therein lies the problem because you are in the wild, wild west. So if you're, let's say in this case, you're the woman using Instagram to try to figure out who a person is, well, that tool is only useful depending on the intention of the person who created a profile. If she's looking at your account, it's great. They're going to get a good read on you because you're not trying to cultivate yourself. You're trying to showcase yourself or your pictures, your hobbies, whatever. But the other person, take exhibit B, who's like, all right, I'm going to try to use this to get girls. So I'm going to put pictures on here. And they might be things I don't even like, but they make me look a certain way. And that's the way I want to be perceived. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to showcase this. I'm going to showcase that. I'm going to be on a car. I'm going to be on a motorcycle. I'm going to be at the gym, et cetera, et cetera. So like, just to go back to what you said very earlier, that's a problem because if I'm watching that and I'm a young, impressionable person, I can't tell the difference just by watching that if what I'm seeing is cultivated reality or if it is reality. And like if I tend to follow people who are the latter, who are cultivating this persona and it's not real, or they're like have a team of people, they're on steroids to tie into the fitness aspect of it, then all right, you're following someone, you're impressionable, and that person is not portraying themselves. And we can kind of tie into this, like maybe you can talk about this, but there's a big deal with like fitness culture and steroid use and how you have people on Instagram that are promoting themselves as like fitness influencers, as natural bodybuilders who are not natural bodybuilders, who are on steroids. So I'm watching you as a 14-year-old kid in the gym trying to like get my body in shape. And my idol, the guy I'm trying to emulate, is telling me he's natural. But what his physique is not natural. It is on steroids. So there you go. I'm now never going to achieve that naturally. And that's my goal. That's what I've been calibrated to think is possible. And it's because a person is lying. They are trying to project one reality, which is not true.
I certainly think that's the biggest pitfall of social media. Uh, Having someone who is looking up to someone, whether it's fitness or something else, maybe if it's a musician or or an actor or an actress, and they want to kind of attain that level of success, but sometimes they don't know if that success is kind of achieved at a with ill gains, or maybe that success is kind of achieved with a lot of help. So it it's just a big uh, when it comes to certain things like what we were talking about earlier with dating, and also trying to project a business and how that business is run, and what kind of um, earnings that business would get. That's fair, but to me, the biggest problem is kind of the impression on the youth, and how that can affect them in the long run, in terms of how they project themselves, not only on social media but also in real life. And I think that's a big issue that somehow these social media companies, I don't think they think about, but they have to start thinking about how how do they not censor people, but how do they protect the younger people that are on these programs, and make sure that they're actually not desensitized to these negative aspects of social media.
That's a very valid concern, and unfortunately, I think I could speak for all three of us. I think we all agree that some people, their digital profile, their online life is more important than what's actually happening. The way that they can portray themselves is more important to them than who they actually are. And that's where I think we're at the threshold of. And it's a sad reality, but people care more about what other people think of them on the internet than who they actually are. And that's really fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's like with Instagram or any social media. It's funny, like in New York, people will, I mean, let's say a woman will go to the bodega and not dress up, right? You know, you're in your pajamas, you're just going to cross the street, grab whatever. But you would never take a picture like that. I mean, in most cases, right? You to give credit to what Rob said, it's like that showcases what you care about more, right? You're not so worried about bumping into someone and them seeing you this way, but you are worried about your internet profile, your internet footprint, and how you're perceived in the electronic world. And I mean, maybe you're right. I mean, maybe that person is right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe maybe their priorities are correct. But it just seems kind of it's not it's a new form of reality. It's not what human beings have done historically, right? It's just a different. It's just different. I mean, maybe that's the connecting point between you and me and you, Joe. It's like it's just not it's new, and we don't really know. We're still working it out. Something I wanted to say to you, Joe, and a question was, do you think there should be like more stringent or strict age qualifications to be on Instagram? Like, I don't know if there is. Like, should you have to be 18 to be on Instagram? Like, should there be no way that you can, as like a 12-year-old or a 10-year-old kid, sign on to Instagram and have an account? Would that be like, how would you, like, I know, like, you've mentioned this a lot. Like, it's a pattern for you, Joe, and it's like great quality. It's the reason why I think we all like you, is that like you really care about like how people are and how they're affected, especially young people. Like, you bring it up. I think you've brought it up in nearly every podcast we've done. Like, you care about that. Like, you don't want someone who's impressionable to be bullied, to be manipulated or taken advantage of. So like, what do you think? Like, how could you stop that? How could you prevent that?
I don't think there should be an age limit on social media, but there should be. I feel like two things. One, I think there should be kind of more of policing when it comes to social bullying or social media bullying, from these sites or these applications. There should be more preventative measures to prevent these uh, these kids from being bullied online, because it can have a dramatic effect on how they actually live outside of these sites and also online as well. Um, but also, I think the onus should really be on the person posting. If there's some kind of if there's some kind of racy material or some kind of offensive material online, there should be the onus on the person to identify it as that and then post from there. I don't think the kids should be kind of penalized for kind of the craziness that we put on online.
So yeah, like I might have a different take on this. It might be hot, but uh, it's like spilling milk or water out of a bottle. You can't put it back in. At this point, we've let kids run rampant with all these gadgets. Everyone has iPhones and iPads. They're online. They're playing video games with each other. They're sending each other voice messages, video. At this point, there's no way to put an age limit. At this point, you can't do it. It's just too late. They'll find a way. They're, believe it or not, like one thing I would give to the generation right below us is they're fucking smart with technology, generally speaking. They're dumb with other things. They're dumb with like person to person communication. They don't know how to do that. It scrambles them. That crosses their wires real good. But they will figure out a way to, you block them age limit from Instagram, they'll just get some friend that has access and they'll be able to see it. It's too late at this point. So we're crying over spilled milk in terms of that regard. But we are going into a realm where we're just there's just too much information online, and I don't know how we're ever going to get it back.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. It's, Pandora's box. Now you deal with the repercussions, and some will be good and some will be bad. It's just a fact of life. Um, what was I going to say? Losing my train of thought today. The this is what I was going to say. Yeah, this was to go to you were talking about, Joe, with like policing the platform. And to my understanding, social media platforms, they as a business, they're really not producers of content, right? They're a platform. And that's kind of like they're in a legal gray area. And I think this has gone to court. Maybe Robert can speak to this more because of his legal experience. But to my understanding, like they want to be in that gray area where if they can kind of control what's on there, but also they can hide under the I'm a platform. I don't control what's on here. We just give a platform. People can put their stuff on it, but like we're not a media outlet. Like we can't control. We're not gonna censor anyone. Right, that's the big word. I don't want to censor anyone. And I think for a lot of these like Facebook, I think they've gone to court. Like it's like this is something that's like in Congress. Like people are trying to say, hey, you can't have it both ways. You're either in control of the content that's there, because I mean I think it's gone on record that a lot of these social media platforms they pull people or they like hide you or ban you. So in some cases, if they don't like your viewpoint, they will dust you off, whether they legitimately ban you or they just make it so you're hard to find. But flip that around, they've also been accused of not pulling people that are actively like trying to get people riled up to do a negative. And usually their response when like let's say the Congress says, "Hey man, like what the hell? You got to like control this." They're like, "Well, no, that's not our job. Like freedom of speech. We're a platform. We're not in the business of like censoring people." So maybe to what you said, Joe, the answer is like you got to pick a side. Like you either need to you need to either cultivate the content and take ownership of that, both on the positive or the negative, or it's the true wild wild west, and it's like it's up to user discretion, right? We're not going to control what's on here. You want to go see, there might be a guy in ISIS on here. He has the freedom to go on there and say what he wants to say. You as a user need to know that, and like if you don't like this this arena that you're engaging in, well, then you got to get off it. But right now, I think it's like they kind of hop back and forth, and that's where some of the problems lie.
Yeah, you're on the right path there. So the current legal climate is it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Fluid. So because this is so new in terms of lawmaking and policy making, there's no concrete statutes or regulations that regulate all these. So a lot of these companies like Facebook, if you go on, I mean, no one ever reads this. No one's ever read the entire Facebook and Instagram privacy policy and all this, all that other junk, because it's tens of pages long. But they protect themselves from things like this. They're like, nothing anyone says personally is a reflection of their company, so that's how they save their own ass. But I think you make a good point. You're allowing the platform for people to do nefarious activity, and what the way they get out of that is they would say that because we have in most countries you have the ability to access it at your own will, at your own leisure, um, that they're not coinciding with you. They can separate themselves, but there's more and more cases that are being brought up that show that, well, yes, yes, you're not endorsing it, but you've created a situation where you've allowing the activity to happen. So it's now turning more to the opposite side. The more we go along, I think Elon Musk does talk about this as well. The more we go along into the digital age, the more these Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are going to be held at least complicit to this activity that's what's happening. But as of right now, they all their policy, when you agree to the terms and conditions to use the platform, it separates the action anyone involved with the company from your personal activity.
I completely agree. I think there's going to be a point where these social media companies are going to be kind of held under like antitrust like litigation, and they're going to be hit hard from a lot of different sides in terms of previously not being held to certain standards, and they will be in the future be held to more stringent standards of how to police cyberbullying to prevent uh, questionable material going over to people that really shouldn't see it. Um, kind of fraud that happens on these sites, a bunch of different things. I think that's going to happen. Probably not soon, but definitely when within our lifetimes. Um, I will also say though, I do see a pattern. I feel like with the social media like platforms that are out now, I think that there's definitely a lifespan with them, and I could easily see some of the ones that we have now kind of go away within the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, like, for instance, people of Facebook is, if you look at new signups and users and activity of logins and things like that and posts, Facebook is like kind of fallen off the cliff from what it was only like 3 years ago. So Joe is right. Like the new, and it comes with, yeah, it's a generational thing. So the things that give you the instant gratification, the 20 seconds of clips and audio, are what's skyrocketing right now. So Facebook is going down, but luckily for them, they own Instagram, which owns Snapchat and all of these things. So they've kind of gobbled them up, which is smart on their part, business wise. But Joe is right. It's like there's some of these, like there's going to be a time where people just don't use Facebook anymore because they have TikTok, Twitch, Snapchat, and Instagram already. They don't need Facebook. Why do you need Facebook now? Everyone else is using the other things way more activity wise. So I'm going to delete my Facebook account. I'm going to delete, what was the first one? MySpace. Like what happened to MySpace? No one used MySpace is done, gone. It's still actually active, I think, if you try to use it, but no one does. So it'll kind of weed itself out in that way, but it's going to keep it. The thing about social media is it mirrors the behavior of the current social climate that's happening in the world. And no one wants to sit down and watch the network news for an hour now. They want to be able to go on Twitter and see boom, 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 boom. They see the quick hits. All right, this is happening in the world. Bang, 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 bang. I can move on now. I can go play my video games now. And things like that. This is the reality of what the new generation is bringing. And so I have a question for you, Krista. What do you think about that? Like, I think all three of us are more of like old school guys, where I like to read an actual book. I like to hold it in my hand. I like sitting down having conversations. But now we live in a world where if it can't fit in the tweet, no one cares about it.
So there's a guy, Gary V. He's like a well-known. You might have heard of him. He's like all over YouTube, all over Instagram, whatever. I like kind of what he says about social media, and I don't think I've ever heard it from anyone else. I tend to think it's negative, but he was like, social media has allowed us to hold a mirror up to ourselves, and really, what we're seeing is not like altered humanity. It's pure humanity. So like all the things that we kind of like call out as negatives, like the social media platform did not create it. If anything, just allowed you to voice that opinion, showcase yourself. If you think you're attractive, all right, now you can broadcast yourself for the world, to the world, to say that you're attractive. It's not like that idea was never there before that invention. It's more or less like, in many ways, these platforms allow us to showcase both our positive and negative aspects of our species. Um, and I don't know if it'll go away. What I was going to say to both of you was earlier, it was two questions about this, was if Instagram costs money, would you use it? Like if it had a monthly subscription where it was like, all right, $250 a month to use Instagram, would people use it? Or is it that social media is free, or at least it's free up front because they're using your data? So they're definitely making more money off you than you're making off of them. Let's be honest, nothing's free. But like if you had to pay $250 to go on Instagram, would Instagram be a thing? Would Facebook be a thing? Would social media in general really be a thing if it costs money to use? That's my question, both of you guys.
I like that question. I think I'm going to answer it personally, then I'm going to answer what I think the general public would think. So, personally, yes, for Instagram only. That's the only one I like. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on anything else but Facebook and Instagram. And Instagram I would pay for because, like we were talking about and Joe mentioned way back in the beginning when we were talking, was I like photographs. I like aesthetics. I like seeing things. I like scenic views, like things like I like people that are into photography and can put like these are the things that just please me in terms of social media wise. So Instagram I would pay for, but there's it's not inelastic. There's a threshold. Like I wouldn't pay $10 a month. If it was $10 a month, I probably wouldn't do it. If it was a $2.50, probably. If it was a buck, yeah. But um, the other side of it was I lost my train of thought now. So yes, I would pay for it, but my concrete answer is yes, I would pay for it, but there's a threshold into what I would pay for. What is Joe?
So I love Instagram for the reasons that you pointed out, where I can see things that would kind of motivate me to take better photographs or just get out there and see the world. Um, I can also see people that would motivate me to do certain things. But I don't like what Instagram has kind of made me into. I feel like there was a point where I was more patient with kind of consuming things, but now it's more quick bites. Um, I'm not as. I feel like it's made me a little bit more. Um, kind of more numb to how I perceive the world to be. So I wouldn't pay for it. The only social media uh, website that I can see myself paying for is probably YouTube, because there's just so much stuff out there, and I can really kind of sift through what's there and what's not there. I can sift through the short clips, and I can sift through the long ones. I just feel that there's a little bit more value to something like YouTube versus Instagram.
I didn't even think about YouTube, and you're right, because that is 100% social media. So we're coming up to about almost an hour and a half. And what are any thoughts, anything that we haven't really hit on, Joe, that you were like, all right, that's one other feature of this kind of discussion that I wanted to bring up. For the most part, I think I've said. I mean, I tend to be negative about social media. I probably shouldn't be, because what we're doing now is going to be in the social media landscape. And actually, as you were talking about MySpace, I'm wondering if maybe we should bring back MySpace. Maybe we should create the Crow's Nest MySpace account, help reinvigorate a dying social media platform.
I don't think so. I don't think that's gonna help. This is too. Tom's done. He's done. I think he knows it too. He's rich already, though. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's a tough subject because obviously it brings us a lot of entertainment. It keeps the communication is easy, but in my view, and I'll stand by this. I'll die on this hill if I have to. It's done much more harm than good. And it will continue to do much more harm than good, and it's only getting worse because now people are reliant on it, and it's gone to the point where that's the number one our number one entertainment consumption is things that people post on social media, and that frightens the shit out of me. But what do you think?
Yeah, Tom is definitely done. He is definitely not coming back. But to piggyback on what you said, Rob, I I think there's good to Instagram or other social media like platforms in a time like this where we kind of are a little bit isolated. Another way for us to connect with other people. So I think that's a good thing. It's just that we had to find a better way to kind of um, pull ourselves out and not jump into the rabbit hole that it can be, because sometimes you can just get swallowed up, and it can consume you in terms of how much content you consume and how much you want to put out there to get to the end game that you want. So we need a lot more balance. I think that the idea that Apple had in terms of being able to kind of see what your screen time was or is pretty damn good. And there's no way I can see these social media platforms doing that, because they want people on their platforms as much as possible. But I think that would be a great idea for them to kind of um, just ease the burden on the people that are using these platforms. I will say one other thing that I feel like I don't think that most people do when it comes to trying to gain info on other people or kind of snoop. A good idea would just to go to like their tagged images or tagged photos. I think that's the best way to kind of see what that person really is, and not who are they trying to portray themselves to be.
I think that's true. I think, but I lean more toward Chris in this instance where I maybe you can call me paranoid, but I just don't trust the general population enough to use it properly, because I think if used correctly, it would be a wonderful tool. But I don't trust the general populace to do that, and that's really my sticking point with social media. It's done more harm than good, generally speaking. But obviously, there's people that have used it the correct way, and if you follow the right people or the right channels and things like this, you can definitely get education out of it. And in just social media at large, if like 10-year-old children spent 8 hours a day on Wikipedia reading stuff instead of 8 hours a day scrolling through Instagram posts and stories, I think that the entire globe would be not only smarter but better behaved and well off for it. So it's like, so the idea of social media is fine, but I just don't trust how humans are using it in large scale.
Awesome. So thank you guys for tuning into this episode. This is definitely a conversation we could talk about. You know, you could talk about social media from so many different perspectives, so many different angles, and we just kind of dipped our toes into it. One thing I would like to end this podcast with is the quote from Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And these tools are very powerful. And like Joe has said, you can use them in a variety of positive ways. And like Rob has said, you can use them in a variety of negative ways. And really, the onus is on us, right? We need to become wise and proficient users of these technical tools that are now well proliferated in our world. And really, like, you can't blame someone for creating a tool. You gotta learn how to use the tool well, right? A hammer can build a beautiful cathedral, or you can go knock out your neighbor's lights. It's really on you. Can't blame the tool. So maybe it's on us to just become better users of these digital tools that are now very widespread.
So does that make us Peter Parker? Are we Tobey Maguire, or is everyone else Uncle Ben?
That's a good question.
Who's
I
Uncle
don't
Ben
know.
and who's Peter
I
Parker
don't
here?
know. It came to me in the moment.
No, I like that. That's good. That's actually that's one of my favorite quotes. It's true. It's so goddamn true. That's what. Yeah.